Between 87 and 2003, 15 years, 13 of those behind bars. What happened? What changed? On June 10th of 1996, the cop walked in my cell, he kicked my rack, he said, "Long, you need to call home. Your father's died." And on June 10th of 1996, I learned that my father at 59 years old was dead. And I realized that my dad went to his grave knowing me as a thief and a crook and a liar. I'd never have a chance to change that. And I began to think back to the last conversation I had with my dad. It's 2 weeks before he died. My dad says, "Son, you could be dead. You still got a chance." And 2 weeks later, he was gone. And I thought back over those words, and I realized that on my father's deathbed, the nicest thing that he could say to me was, "At least I was alive." I came across a couple of concepts, and one of them was a quote by a fellow named Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche says, "We attract that which we fear." And then I'm reading the book called Man's Search for Meaning by a fellow named Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl said 4 words: fear may come true. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, well, maybe, just maybe, they're right. I started thinking about, well, what do I fear most? Well, I fear going back to the joint. I fear being an unemployed loser. I feared losing my kid. I feared all this being broken, homeless stuff. And what had I attracted into my life at 32 years old? I had attracted everything into my life that I feared. I want you to imagine right here on this stage, I had a big box, like a big cardboard box. And everything that I needed to build a beautiful motorcycle was in that box. All the frame, the engine, all the parts. Nothing else is in that box. No extra parts. It's no shortage of parts, no extra parts. Just every single part that I need to build that motorcycle is in that box. Now, assuming that I had the mechanical skills and the instructions to assemble that motorcycle, if I began to pull the parts out of that box one by one, I pull one part out and I bolt something on. I pull the next part out and I bolt right just where it needs to go, right? I don't just randomly put these things together. I put them together according to what I know a motorcycle will look like, right? I put them together according to what? My vision. I put them together to what I know a motorcycle is going to look like at the end. So I pull those parts out one by one, piece by piece. Now, if I stay focused on that process and I pull those pieces out and everything I need's in there and I assemble it the way a motorcycle should look, what are the odds at some point I'm going to get to the end of that process and look up and accidentally have baked a cake? There's no way. You can't bake a cake with motorcycle parts. That box, my friends, is a metaphor for your mind. And you got a bunch of stuff in there. You got a bunch of parts. You got a bunch of components. Everything you've accumulated since you were this big is in that box. And you go through the course of your life, and piece by piece, you pull out whatever's in that box, part by part, component by component. And little by little, you're putting it together according to the vision of what you think your life's going to look like. And one day, you look up, and your life is a perfect reflection of what was in the box. You better know what's in that box. You better program what's in that box. And you do that by writing it, repeating it, and experiencing it. I call this a quiet time ritual. You take that list that you've written out and you read it over and over and over again. Read it as many times as you have to read it. And while you're reading it, I want you to close your eyes and visualize it and see it. And allow yourself to get deeply emotionally committed to what you're reading. In 1996, I'm in federal prison, and my father passed away. And I realized that my life, my miserable, pathetic, impoverished life, was a reflection of my expectations. My habitual thoughts about drugs and violence and crime, that consumed my mind and consumed my life. So I started reading and studying. That's how I fell into these ideas, and I realized I got to change my expectations. I got to create some massive expectations. And so I took out a sheet of paper, I sat down at the little metal desk in my cell, and I got a pencil, and I wrote out what an awesome, beautiful life for me would look like. Now, when I wrote this down, I was a 9th grade high school dropout. I was 32 years old. I had 7 years left to serve in the penitentiary. I wouldn't be getting out until I was almost 40 to that shelter. Nonetheless, I had big dreams. Here's what I wrote down. I'm an awesome father to my son. Now, at the time, my son was 3 years old, and I had abandoned him when I went back to prison. But I was dreaming big. I'm an educated man. At the time, I had a 9th grade education. I have a beautiful mountain home. I'd never had a home anywhere. I'm a successful businessman, writer, and speaker. Are you kidding me? I was a 3-time loser, 9th grade high school dropout, sitting up in the penitentiary. Nobody gave a damn about what I had to say. I'm writing a book on the beaches of Maui. Maui was part of the plan. Funny thing is, I thought Maui was in the Caribbean. I didn't even know where the hell it was, right? I read a book about Maui. I'm like, I'm going to the Caribbean. For those of you not laughing, it's in the Pacific. That's pretty funny, huh? I come up with some good shit sometimes. You say enough shit in your life and something will be right and funny. I'm wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. I was making 50 cents a day in the penitentiary. Are you kidding me? I have an honest, trustworthy, beautiful wife. Only if you count Bubba, my cellie. I'm a man of honor, character, and integrity. I had a better chance of getting struck by lightning and winning the lottery in the same day than any of those things happening. But I became convinced, as Stephen Covey taught me in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that I could live out of my imagination and I didn't have to be held hostage to my past. I could be a better person. I could be a better man. I could live a different life. And I believed, yes, I can live out of my imagination. I don't have to be held hostage to my past, the violence, the drugs, the incarceration, the poverty. I made a decision that my expectations were going to change, and I wrote that list out on a sheet of paper, and I stuck it to the wall in my cell with toothpaste. And every day for the next 7 years, I would study that list. I would imagine what it would be like to be that person. And 7 years later, I walked out of the penitentiary. And within 5 years, everything on that list came to pass. I got out, I got my son. He was 10 years old. He's 25 years old now. I raised him. He's in his 7th year of a 4-year program at the University of Colorado. He's not a math major. He's not a math major. You can do the math on that one. We went down to New Orleans for a Saints game a couple of weeks ago, and my son says to me, he goes, Dad, now a lot of guys I know have been in college 7 years. He said, now I know they're doctors, but, you know. He's a musician. Enough said. I got my GED. I got a bachelor's degree and an MBA in management. Beautiful home in Colorado Mountains, beautiful home on Maui. Everything that I dreamt sitting in that cell in 1996, 21 years ago, happened within a few years of walking down to the penitentiary. It wasn't an accident. I didn't get luckier. I got intentional. I got focused. You got to get focused on the things you want because there is power in the clarity. Knowing specifically what you want, knowing specifically what you're going to accomplish. You can't be waffling. You can't be, well, maybe I'll do this and maybe I'll do that. You got to say, what is my definite purpose? With my family, with my health, with my business, what is my purpose? Clarity, power and clarity. Consistent action towards the dream. So now I have the dream, $10 million a year business, whatever it is, $1 million of profitability, whatever your dream is, as big as you want to go. Now I have to take consistent actions towards the dreams. Now, the reality is that a lot of times in life, we think that our life is a reflection of kind of these big moments. The reality of your life is an accumulation of tiny things, what I call seemingly inconsequential events. Little things that we do over and over and over without ever thinking about it. Because think about the big decisions in your life, right? Should I open this business, or should I take this job, or should I marry this person, or should I buy this house? When you have big decisions, you typically will kind of contemplate the pros and cons. And so more often than not, you make good decisions. It's not the big decisions you got to watch out for in your life. You'll get those right. You have to be careful about the millions of seemingly inconsequential decisions we make every single day that don't seem like anything. How many years have we known in this country, for example, smoking's bad for our health? 100 years? You know? And yet a lot of people still smoke. Good people, decent people. Why would people smoke cigarettes knowing what we know about tobacco at this stage of our human development? Why do people smoke? Because it won't kill you today. There's no immediate impact of smoking. In fact, smoking a cigarette is the ultimate seemingly inconsequential event. It's just one cigarette. If you smoke one cigarette one time, it's not going to hurt you. It's the repetition of that seemingly inconsequential event over and over and over. There's no immediate consequence. And maybe, just maybe, you're one of the lucky ones that dodges that bullet. My grandmother may she rest in peace. She lived to be 90 years old. She smoked 2 packs of Pall Malls a day for 60 years, and she died of some other shit. She did not die of cancer, right? I mean, she just died of getting old, right? No COPD, no emphysema. So she dodged that bullet, right? Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. But whatever's gonna happen with smoking, we know it's not gonna happen today. But imagine if you took an avid smoker, and instead of giving that smoker one seemingly inconsequential cigarette at a time, imagine you give that smoker a year's worth of cigarettes at one time, 2,000, 3,000 cigarettes, right? And you wrap them up like a giant blunt, and you take them to, I live in Colorado, it's cool. You take the 3,000 cigarettes, and you give them to him at one time, and you say, smoke them if you got them, pal. Smoke 3,000 cigarettes at one time. Would he smoke 3,000 cigarettes at one time? No way. And if you ask him why not, you know what he'd say? Make me sick. Might kill me. Yeah. Smoking 3,000 cigarettes at one time will probably make you sick, and it might even kill you. But guess what? Smoking 3,000 cigarettes, one seemingly inconsequential cigarette at a time, will make you sick and might kill you too. This is the conundrum of human nature. That you give us the big decision, the big 3,000 cigarette decision, and we make the right choice and we say no. But you break those 3,000 cigarettes down to 3,000 seemingly inconsequential decisions, and we say the exact opposite answer and say yes to every single one of them. This is the insanity of the human brain. I wouldn't do it 3,000 at a time, but I'll do it one at a time 3,000 times. And take consistent action. Consistent action. By the way, who would like this book? Who would like this free book? No kidding, no messing around. Who would like the book? Awesome, bro. See there? That's the difference between wanting something and getting off your ass and taking action. That's the difference between having and wanting. And the funny thing about human nature is we learn fast. Who would like this book? See?
Right here. Ladies first.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. You're busted. Hey, you two, and this gentleman right here, give me your cards, and we'll make sure and send you guys some books. We'll send you guys. Look, this is proactive right here, being very proactive. Where's your card? You don't have a business card. Are you in business? What the hell is the matter with you? You want me to just... Is this yours or his? Are you giving me money?
This is mine.
He just stole your book, dog. Make sure I get your card. That's the difference between action, having something, and wanting something. Wanting something is like trying. I'm going to try. I was joking with John this morning. You going to do a good job for us today? I'm going to try. Trying, I mean, Jack. It's like that football coach. A buddy of mine, he's a high school football coach. And he's out there coaching, of course, in Friday night in the game. And his quarterback's getting mauled. His quarterback's getting sacked every single time. The offensive line is doing nothing. They're not protecting their quarterback. And so he goes to his backup offensive lineman, and he grabs him by the shirt, and he says, son, can you go out there and protect my quarterback? And the young boy says, coach, I'll try. He said, son, the man out there is trying. Trying is empty. You either do it or you don't do it. There's no in between. Not in my world. Because trying makes room, opens up the opportunity to surrender, to give up. I tried. I tried. Consistent action without compromise. So we got to get focused. We got to get clarity. We got to take consistent action like these men and this young lady took right here. They got up and took some action. And then we got to model an expert. Don't reinvent the wheel. You know, it's funny. We've all heard that old expression, misery loves company, but so does success. When I was growing up, Jay-Z Mouton back there backed me up on this one. And we'd go crabbing, and we'd throw a crab trap off a bridge, and you put a turkey neck or something in there, and those crabs will just come right in that little trap. They just walk in, and then all you got to do is pull that rope and pull that crab trap right up to the bridge, right? And it's a funny thing, because when you pull that crab trap out of the water, I mean, like even a dumb crab knows, something's going on here, right? Because I'm like flying through the air above the water now. And those crabs will sit there and just kind of look around and not do anything. They'll just sit there. And they're just a half an hour from the boiling pot. They don't seem to care, but there's always that one crab that says, whoa, something's wrong here. I got to get out of this mess. I got to get out of this trap. And what's he start doing? He starts climbing out. And a crab can climb out of that trap. What do the other crabs do? They don't even try to get out. What do? Grab his ass down.
That's what they do. Pull him back down. Misery loves company, but so does success. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. You run with losers, you will eventually model their behavior. You run with winners, you will eventually model their behavior. We have to have a model. We have to have someone we can duplicate. As I said earlier, if you want to make $1 million a year, do what the guy that's making $1 million a year does. And I know that might sound oversimplified, but it's just the truth. You have to find people that are doing what you want to do, and you have to model them. You have to emulate them. In 2002, I was in the penitentiary. It was 6 years after my father died, and 6 years after I made the decision to change the course of my life. I only had 1 year left to go in prison. I was 38 years old, and had 1 year left to go in prison. I was super, super excited. I didn't care that I was getting out to a homeless shelter. I didn't care that I was gonna have to struggle initially. I had focus, I knew exactly what I wanted. I was willing to take consistent action without making excuses. And I role modeled some very successful people. And that's exactly what I'm asking you all to do, is to get focused on what you want for your business, be willing to take consistent action, not just try, not just say, hey, here I am, come find me. You gotta be willing to take consistent action. And then, of course, we gotta role model somebody, in this case, Mike Capuccio. So I was excited about getting out of prison. And I'm sitting in the cell house one day, and I'm on the phone, and the prison guard, the cop, comes walking past me. And as he walks past me, he fell down. Now, I didn't know exactly what happened. At first, I thought he tripped or something. I wasn't sure what happened. But I turned around, and the guy is sitting there, and he's like flopping around having some kind of seizure. I'd never seen anything like it. Looked like a fish out of water. I turn around, and I see this guy. Now, my first thought, that first nanosecond thought, rule number 1 of the penitentiary, the police are not your friend. You don't interact with the police. You don't talk to the police. I had seen men get beat down to within 1 inch of their life for talking to cops too much. You just don't do it. And you certainly don't help them in a situation like that, not unless you want to have some serious problems on the yard. But I looked at this man, he's flopping around, and my initial instinct was, dude, it sucks to be you, because you're the only cop in the cell house, everybody else convicts. But I had to make a decision about what I was going to do. And instead of making the same decision, remember I said before what Einstein said, you cannot fix a problem at the same level of thinking that had created the problem? Well, 6 years earlier, on that sheet of paper that I had on my cell wall, one of the things I had on that list is that I'm a man of honor, character, and integrity. So in that moment, instead of making the decision I would have made for many years before that, which is you're a cop, you're screwed, I made a different decision because I'd been putting that in my mind for 6 years at that point. So I knew I had to help him. If I was truly gonna be a man of honor and character, I had to help the cop. So I kneel down over the guy, and at first I'm just trying to get my hands around his forearms because he's flopping around, he's hitting himself in the head. I'm trying to hold the guy, kind of stabilize him. And just as I get my hands around his arms, all of a sudden, like somebody turned a light switch off, dude was gone. I didn't know if he had a stroke or an aneurysm or a heart attack, but he was violently fighting me and then he just collapsed. And like that, dude was dead as a doornail. I couldn't believe it, what I just saw. I said, this man just died right in front of me. So I started thinking, I gotta do something. I mean, I could see the color of his skin turned gray. You could see he was getting no oxygen. He was dead or, on his way to dying. I wasn't for sure. But I thought, I gotta do CPR. I gotta help this guy do CPR. The problem was, I didn't know nothing about CPR. In fact, the only thing I knew about CPR at that point, to be honest with you, is what I'd seen on Baywatch in slow motion. Right? So I took a moment, asked myself the obvious question. What would Pamela Anderson do? Pause for a moment, I pictured her in that red bikini. Got lost in anyway. But what I remember is they push in the chest, right? Yeah, I put my lips on hers, yeah. You were getting ahead of me there. You must have read the book. I started pushing on dude's chest, nothing happens. I push on dude's chest again, nothing happens. Finally, I realized the only way I'm helping this guy is I got to put these lips on those lips, right? And it wasn't Pamela Anderson, right? In fact, her lips would have been like this big. She had like so many injections, right? It would take 3 or 4 of us to kiss Pamela Anderson. I'm sure we have many willing participants. So I realized I got to put my mouth on this dude's mouth. So I put my mouth on his mouth. I can taste the Dr. Pepper that he'd been drinking when he fell down. It was all I could do not to gag right there on the dude. But you know what was worse? Like worse, gentlemen, I'm just giving you a heads up here. What was worse than Dr. Pepper? I be honest, I halfway like Dr. Pepper. What was worse than Dr. Pepper? The whiskers. Oh my God. When my little baby lips touched his whiskers, he had like 4 or 5 day growth. I thought I was gonna have a stroke right there with him. Just gonna die right there on top of him. But I felt those whiskers, I nuzzled in there real nice and tight. And I breathed, and nothing happened. I nuzzled up in there again, I breathed, and nothing happened. Dude was dead as a doornail. Finally, after about 2 or 3 minutes of me just beating on this guy's chest and basically making out with him, 2 or 3 minutes later, I hear some cops bum rushing the unit. Some guys had gone to get some help, and a bunch of cops came rushing the housing unit, and they started locking the cell house down, and it just was total chaos. One of the cops comes around next to me, kneels down next to me, and he knew how to do CPR. And he knew right away, he told me later, he goes, right away, I knew that you were helping him. And he says, you gotta pinch the nose and tilt the head back. I hadn't been doing that, right? And so I'm breathing, his mouth is coming right back out his nose. So I pinched his nose, I tilt the head back, and then he said, breathe. So I put my mouth on his mouth again, and I breathed, and sure enough, I could see his chest move a little bit. Then the cop gets on him and starts doing the compressions. Tells him to breathe again, he starts doing compressions, back and forth. After about 30 seconds or a minute, we start getting this rhythm, right? And after about a minute, I start seeing color coming back to this dude's face. I'm like, holy cow, this is working. We're getting oxygen in this man's brain. This goes on for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, just as fast as that dude stopped breathing and died or whatever happened, he came back to life, like somebody turned the switch back on. And naturally, he came to life in the very moment that my mouth was nuzzled up into his. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy, all of a sudden, eyes open up big as silver dollars, and he sees the prisoner in khakis, right? He comes up swinging. He has no idea what happened. He's chasing me across the floor. One of the cops grabs him and says, hey, you're okay, you're okay. You passed out. They end up taking the guy to the hospital. As it turns out, his heart stopped beating for like 90 seconds. They could tell in the EKG, and some reaction he had to some medication. About 2 weeks after that, I got this letter from the warden. It says, Dear Mr. Long, during the medical emergency which occurred here last week involving Officer Mark McClure, you were on site as he suffered an apparent seizure and fell to the floor. I am told that you witnessed him cease breathing and began doing CPR until such time as he could breathe on his own. This is to commend you on those actions and offer my heartfelt gratitude for your help. This man's life may well have been saved. Such was the seriousness of that medical event. The quickness with which you acted and your willingness to cross the invisible barrier between inmate and staff is a testament to your apparent sense of humanity and good character. You performed an act of heroism. Now, character was the exact same word that I had written on a sheet of paper on the wall of my cell that I've been telling myself every day, I'm a man of honor, character, and integrity. You see, I changed my expectations 6 years earlier. I changed my expectations that I wasn't gonna be a thug and a criminal and a crook, that I was gonna become a man of honor, character, and integrity. And then here I was 6 years later, and a prison warden, of all the people on the planet, a prison warden telling me I had become a man of character. That's what happens when you change your expectations. When you expect to be something, you become something different. When you expect to be successful like Mike Capuccio, you become successful like Mike Capuccio. But you have to expect it first. You have to take that spirit, that willingness, that expectation that I'm gonna be successful when we come into these meetings today. Because he's gonna be here with the knowledge. Everything, 4 things we gotta do, and just repeat what he does. But we have to be willing to do it. By the way, the last paragraph of this letter says, I will ensure a copy of this letter is placed in your permanent file and will provide it to the parole board. About a month later, I go in to see the parole board, and they denied me. But I had about a year left at that point, so I didn't care. But it's like that scene from Shawshank Redemption, denied, denied. Like, we don't care who you save, dude. Do your time. So I believe that that letter, that story, is evidence that we fulfill our expectations for better or for worse. If you believe that you need to think small, then you'll think small. If you think plumbers don't drive Cadillacs, then plumbers don't drive Cadillacs. If you think the HVAC business is characterized by struggle and difficulty and tight cash flow, then that's what you're gonna get. We have to change our expectations. Henry David Thoreau said, advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, and you will meet with success unexpected in common hours. And I think that's more than just a bunch of fancy words. I think it's a promise. Advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, and you will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. God bless. Have a great day. We'll be back here about 50. Thank you, sir. We'll be back.
Epidemic Sound provides you with restriction-free music and sound effects that you can use across all of your content without.
You stand for Mr.